Blog Talk Radio.
Thank you once again for coming to Bard's Logic, Political Talk, part of the conservative conversation. And thank you for coming either live or to the podcast to this special December the 18th, 2020 episode. And so tonight on this special episode, we will have Markham Robinson on. We have Kelly, who will introduce our guest for tonight. It's going to be a very interesting episode. It won't be the full 3 hours that we normally do. Those are on 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday nights, in which we will have one the night before Christmas Eve. But let's go ahead, and we got Kelly on the line, as well as our guest. We got other callers. Kelly, who will be introducing our guest. Kelly, thank you very much, Kelly, for coming to the show. How are you this evening?
Well, I'm still a little perplexed at some breaking news of yesterday by Daniel Bobinski out of Idaho. And this has to do with the good work that the American Independent Party is doing in California, what they have discovered. And I'm looking forward to introducing Markham Robinson. He's spearheading this. But first, just kind of an overview of what's going on. California law states that if voters' ballots are missing paragraphs, they cannot be cast or counted. It's because ballots are missing a legal paragraph as required by new California law. So that's a quick summary. And so they've casted ballots that they shouldn't be counting. I find that very fascinating. Okay. So here's excerpts from the Bobinski article. It's titled "California Violated Its Own Election Laws." This is, again, an excerpt. In California state law, the election code is titled Division 13, Ballots, Sample Ballots, and Voter Pamphlets. In Article 1 of this code, we find Election Code 13,200, which reads as follows. Ballots not printed in accordance with this chapter shall not be cast nor counted at any election. That's straightforward English, writes Mr. Bobinski. It's at the 9th grade reading level, so assuming California's elections officials can understand it, here it is one more time, with emphasis. He bolds the, but I'll read it again because it's so shocking when I first heard it yesterday. Ballots not printed in accordance with this chapter shall not be cast nor counted at any election. When we read a little further, we find Section 13.205. Since we're talking about the election of the president and vice president, we'll look at the applicable subsection. Section 13.205b. In elections where electors of president and vice president of the United States are to be chosen, there shall be placed upon the ballots, in addition to the instructions to voters as provided in this chapter, an instruction as follows. It has this in quotes. A paragraph is to be put on the ballot. Quote, to vote for all the electors of a party, mark the voting target next to the names of the president and vice presidential candidates of that party. A mark of the voting target next to the name of a party and its presidential and vice presidential candidate is a vote for all of the electors of that party, but for no other candidates. It means you're voting for the electors of the Electoral College. And he has a display of a Napa County ballot, and on the screen of Bard's Logic, you can see a copy of a ballot from Siskiyou County that has some, it's missing. Okay, so in other words, by California law, the paragraph quoted was supposed to appear on all California ballots. And remember, according to Section 13.200, ballots not printed in accordance with this chapter shall not be cast nor counted at any election. And guess what? This is Bobinski's continuing here. And guess what? According to data collected by the American Independent Party in California, those words did not appear on ballots in 53 of California's 58 counties. In the remaining 5 counties, ballots required additional wording that is outlined in California Election Code 13.205c. Some of those county ballots included the wordings of Section B, but ballots in all 5 of those counties were still missing the required wording from Section C. I was shocked when I heard this yesterday. And I was doing my engineering thing, go for a lunch break, get a call somebody asked, do you have a copy of your ballot? I said, well, yeah, I took pictures. And go look and see if this wording is on there. I went home, looked at it. What? I had to look at the LegInfo website of the state to look up these actual statutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So what you'll see on the Bard's Logic page with that ballot up front, there are sections that they did include, and it has one paragraph, section 13206A, subsection 1, and the other paragraph, section 13206A, subsection 2. But the missing paragraphs on the graphic on the show link, they're missing the sections required. They're missing paragraphs of section 13205B, C, and or D. So this is really mind-blowing. Does this mean all the elections were illegitimate in California? You cannot count the ballots. That's what it says. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really, really heavy. And so why don't we get the guy who's spearheading this conversation? I'm talking with him earlier. Mr. Robinson is seeking evidence. If you have a copy of your ballot or an actual ballot that wasn't cast, that works too. You know, you got a ballot, but you didn't mail it in. Okay, fine. If you have the sample ballot, which I poured through my sample ballot, no language that's supposed to be there, email it to Mr. Robinson. We're looking for evidence, looking for an attorney to take this and run with it. Funding, of course, spread the word, get this out, and then finally, Mr. Robinson is seeking a strategic meeting with Vice President Pence and or senators. And we do happen to have now one U.S. Senator and one House of Representative willing to protest while the Electoral College votes are being counted. So with that, I'm just giving an overview. I want to go ahead and introduce Markham Robinson. This is his bio, okay? So, and this is also from Facebook. You can find him there. I have been called to nothing less than the restoration of the conscience and the Constitution of the United States of America. Liberty is freedom from injustice and the freedom to do any just thing. Our rights and duties come from God. Summary: born in wartime, loved by my parents, redeemed by my Savior, and born anew from above. Air Force brat, lived in the Philippines, and as a lad, visited Hong Kong. Vacaville Union High School, entered UC Davis at age 16, upper division at UC Berkeley, BA in math, field artillery lieutenant in Korea, 1967, met wife, married, live Westmoreland at the University of Oregon in grad school. First job, bureaus on MCPB in Pasadena. Computer programmer by trade. Did Pronto or for Swiss Credit Bank. Freelance technical writer. Owned Master Plan Financial Software since 1989. 2008 to 2010, chairman of American Independent Party of California, and currently the State Central Committee Secretary and Executive Committee Chairman. Combination political philosopher and practical politician, he is the chair of the American Independent Party of California pro tem due to the health issues of the present chair, but he's vice chair. And so, obviously, this guy is no dummy, and I think he's a true patriot. So I want to get into the details, Mr. Robinson, about what you discovered, what your efforts are, where you go from here.
I'd like to give a caution to your listeners, however. Sample ballots is all we need. We're not interested in actual ballots. As a matter of fact, to reproduce an actual ballot is a felony. So I wouldn't want to do that. So don't send us any copies of actual ballots, filled out or unfilled out. The sample ballots are supposed by law to be substantial facsimiles, i.e. essentially identical with the actual ballots cast. So we need no other proof than your sample ballot if you happen to have kept it. We only need, in principle, one from each county, since these instructions are supposed to appear at the top of the ballot, and it has only each ballot, no matter what variations it may have in it, from district to district, for instance, has the same instructions at the very top. So we have already collected almost 1,000 variations from Los Angeles County, and we're collecting as many as we can from other places. But in principle, if we just have one sample ballot, we'll know whether or not the rest of the ballots are overwhelmingly likely to have the same configuration at the top of the ballot. They have no reason to change those instructions ballot to ballot. Okay. Now, the problem we've noted is that of all of the Chapter 3 fatal flaws that ballots may have, every county has committed one of those fatal flaws at least. We have some counties that have as many as 6 fatal flaws in their ballots, and there are some that have only one. We found, we found 3 of those counties. We found 5 counties, which include those 3, that did not lack subparagraph B. So they described what you were really doing when you voted for one of the regular parties, the standard parties, the 6 parties, when you checked the box. You're voting for a slate of electors. Unfortunately, they're not named because there are so many of them, 55. They could print them, but they don't. Maybe if we went to Nebraska's and Maine's methodology, we would actually begin to see again the printing of the names of the elector you're actually voting for. Do you have any questions?
So, all 58 counties have committed some type of fatal flaw that, according to California Election Code 13,200, they cannot be counted.
Right. You've admirably explained that. And let me answer the most commonly posed objection. This is just a technicality. Excuse me? The California Elections Code very wisely says in order for any election to occur, you have to name the office and the candidate or candidates that are vying to fill that office. Well, but then it says, except in this one case for electors for President and Vice President of the United States, you will substitute the names of those who are nominated on behalf of a party or an independent slate or a non-ballot qualified party for that matter, each with their own specific, okay. Now, what happens when you do that? When you substitute one thing for another, and that other thing you've substituted isn't what you're really selecting. That is a problem. That wouldn't be a legitimate vote. But California, I don't know how quickly they realized that they had to do this, required that there be an explanation that the vote was not for the presidential candidate and vice presidential candidate of the party or of the slate, but for the actual slate of electors. So that is still a little lame because you don't know who these people are. And can they be, quote, faithless, go against expectations and vote for somebody else? Well, if they discover that person is an agent of China or a traitor or has been bribed by a foreign power to do their bidding, I hope they would vote against them, even if they pledged to vote for them before they knew that. I can't see how any person of conscience could pledge to vote for a person with those characteristics.
I have a question for you. So, if it's illegal to count the ballots in California because they're missing this paragraph, does this include congressmen and all down ballot candidates down to dog catcher?
Well, I puzzled over that statement. Shall not, vote for, cast or count such ballots in any election. Wait a second. What does that mean? We're just talking about one date here, aren't we? So it can't mean that. But what it amounts to is that a ballot has multiple elections on it. You're making more than one choice. For this office, that office, a choice per office. In the case of the president, it's a pair of offices. But, so it has to mean that at any election means that all those down ballot things that are on the same ballot, not your local ballot, which I think is separate, but the one including all the state legislative offices, the congressmen, senators, if there is such a vote, and electors for president and vice president, except that we don't actually get to see those. And then when they meet to count, the Congress meets in joint session initially to go through the Electoral College votes, to see them opened by the vice president and called out, and totaled and so forth. Then if there's a challenge, and I suspect there will be a challenge since they're competing electors in 6 of the states already, plus there is a possibility of a California challenge, that they go to their separate houses and they vote on these challenges. They say, the question put to them is, shall we reject these Electoral College votes? If both of them say yes, they're rejected. It's very permissive. However, there's this little problem. If the challenge to California is correct, none of those congressmen are actually congressmen. It's not just the Electoral College votes, it's the votes of the congressmen that are invalid, void, which means that when they vote, they can't let California so-called congressmen vote, which means that if the Senate goes party line and rejects Electoral College votes, then and then California being absent causes the House to reject all those 6 challenged states and California probably. After all, that's if they accept the claims of the California challenge, that's what causes the others to be successfully challenged, because now there's a Republican majority in the House in this special session just to consider challenges of Electoral College votes. And so it just like the down ballot elections are included in this wonderful statement in 13,200, so also the disqualification of California congressmen goes over to the challenges in other states as well as California. So as a result, it would flip from, see now, if you just subtract California from Joe Biden's supposed 306 electoral votes, that's 251. If you subtract all 6 additional states, he's not going to have very many, is he?
Well, actually, I ran the numbers on this today. I'm going to guess Biden's going to get Nevada because the legislature of Nevada did change the laws. The other states, the Secretary of State changed the laws, and the local election clerks in the counties are changing the laws. So Nevada is going to go to Biden. But if you deduct the 55 Electoral College votes from California and then Trump flips one state, it could be Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Georgia. If he flips one state, he wins.
We'll fight that out in the Supreme Court. So be it. It'll be a lot simpler for Mr. Trump to become, again, President Trump if he gets one of those states successfully challenged. But if the California challenge is accepted, he's going to succeed whenever a plausible case is made, if the Republicans can stick together.
Yeah, if they can stick together. So we have Senator Tommy Tuberville is going to sign a letter of protest with House member Mo Brooks. And there has been 7 states that have sent their slate of Republican electors. So it's going to be up into the Congress to figure this out. I mean, what a mess. But when I got to repeat something, because when I first heard this, I'm like, what? And my buddy said, look, he read it again. Ballots not printed in accordance with this chapter shall not be cast nor counted at any election. And somebody called me earlier and said, oh, that only applies to the primary. But you don't have electors in the Electoral College in a primary. Well, I guess we talked earlier, and you said the 5 counties that still missing a paragraph were Kern County, Nevada County, Santa Barbara, Inyo, and Alpine. Trump only has majority in one county. That would be Kern County. Biden won the others in California. But they had imperfections which would, as you're stating, disqualify their election. Can you go into more details about that?
Well, I don't have in front of me the problems, but I'm assured by the person collecting our evidence for us, Mark Seidenberg, who's very qualified to do such detailed work, that the things that you might call technicalities afflict the Nevada and the Santa Barbara County ballots. So as a result, if the court manages to work its courage up enough to take this very non-technical problem with some ballots and rule out a count of them, then probably will be inclined to enforce the other more technical violations. They're all equally fatal and have the same consequence. Now, of course, it says in the Constitution that the legislature is in charge of the manner of appointing electors. Now, this is how they exercise that power in this statute. And anything else is denying them that authority. Court can't change that in theory. They can, I believe, enforce adherence to the state's own rules, but they can't change the rules.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Constitution's pretty clear about the legislature decides, so the legislature chose to decide and have this in here. And what I saw on a sample ballot was, oh, goodness, they did put these 2 paragraphs in per the required section. I found the sections. But these additional requirements, I guess it was a law passed and then became effect 1st of January, the county election clerks just didn't put the additional paragraph in. So, I mean, this is huge. Are we going to have a revote? Are all the congressmen, except the senators, because they weren't up for election, but all the congressmen from California not going to be allowed on January 3rd? I mean, that would include Nancy Pelosi, because at noon on January 3rd, her term is over. I mean, it's just kind of funny because, you know, I called and left a message for a city council member here, and I said, sorry to tell you, but here's a law. I sent you an email. It was not a legitimate election. I mean, what's California going to do? Are they going to correct it? Or are they going to fight? So you're looking for evidence. You're looking for an attorney. You're looking for funding. You're looking for people to share this. You want to get a hearing with Pence and some senators. All right, how do people get in contact with you?
Okay, they can get in contact with me via the headquarters phone number and also email address. The address of the party website is very simple, www. And then 5 letters, AIP, the initials of our party, Alpha India Papa, CA for California, .org, www.aipca.org. And you will find a donation on the left side, down at the bottom of the menu choices. You'll find a donation link. Go a little further down beneath the fold on the screen. You'll find the phone number of the party, and you will also find the email for the party. I'll also give you my home phone number.
You're a patriot.
Okay, let me give you my phone number then. 707-448-7062.
Courage in times of need.
Well, I'm going to post all of the articles or copies of the article that's recently been written on this matter that are simplified versions of what we have in our document, which I'll also post a link to, on my Twitter page at the top, pinned. My Twitter moniker is BraveLad, BraveLad. And then Markham Robinson, that's Markham Robinson. It's Markham, not Markham. I am a ham, but I'm not called Markham. Markham Robinson. And then I believe also LinkedIn has me under Markham Robinson. Not very complicated. I'm going to post all three places.
How many Twitter followers? How many Twitter followers do you have?
522,000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have more followers than we had people registered with the party, but it's just been the party registration has been booming. It was 327,000 when I started in 2007 with the American Independent Party, and then it got up to just below 500,000, and then it was 516,000, 540, and now it's 650, I think, maybe, or 42,000, 640s or 50,000 people registered, and we're just, I mean, this is just in a few weeks we went up over 100,000. I think people are finally getting the idea. There was an attack on us in the LA Times, saying people were so confused they thought they were independents when they're really members of a party, which they mislabel as far right. We're not. We're constitutional conservatives. We're what some of the Republican Party claim to be in actuality.
Wow. Well, I'm a libertarian, and I thought about switching over to the American Independent Party because the Republican Party of California is really hurting. So in hearing you, I am very attracted to go to the American Independent Party, which is only in California, which makes you the national chair of the American Independent Party.
Yes, indeed. By the way, our platform has a link in that little menu that has the donate at the bottom. It also has a link called Manifesto, which has 5 documents. Something given to new citizens, a statement of purpose, 200 words, that's printed on the Secretary of State's website, by the way, and then 2 documents founding our national party and stating its principles, and then the platform of the party, which also has a separate link. Now, I happen to have been the primary author with very minor edits from a committee of the whole of these documents. I think Jefferson had more edits than I did.
Huh. Yeah. When the Declaration
he had about 5 edits, and they were all good edits, by the way. I've seen the original.
Good. Wow. So I wonder if, Robert, if anybody else wants to chime in or ask questions.
Well, I do have Chris from Kentucky, and I might have a few questions for Chris myself. Thank you very much for coming to the call, Chris, to the show. And a question: What's going on with Mitch McConnell? I mean, come on. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, to be honest. But go ahead.
Well, Mitch has got a favorite voting machine, and that's Hart Intercivic. He'll probably tell you it's because they're based in Lexington. But if you look at some of the recent Twitter information from people looking at Mitch and some recent data coming out of the presidential election, Hart Intercivic machines may, in fact, be worse than Dominion. So that is just a pure speculative thing on my part. But I will tell you as a little bit of breaking news out of Kentucky, and again, this is still in motion here from 2019, but in our current open records request that we have in 8 different counties right now, we have one major populous county unable to produce us 56 of 600 plus precincts, they cannot produce the machine tapes. They're missing. So in an effort to audit yet the e-logs and the machine tapes, we are now missing machine tapes. So when you have things like this going on and you have somebody like the majority leader in the state who absolutely threw our governor and the election under the bus last year, it doesn't surprise me that you're beginning to see a similar pattern in Washington right now. And it's just the people that play with these toys, they don't like to give them up very easily.
Wow. So Chris is a election integrity activist there in Kentucky, and she's working on looking at the Sheer Bevins campaign. We had Matt Bevins on the show here several years ago. And Chris, you heard about this story about California earlier when it broke?
Yes.
And do you have any questions here for Mr. Robinson?
Well, I guess my biggest question is, how is it going to, I guess the big thing is, having worked with, for example, Phil Klein of the Amistad Project, there needs to be an appetite for a judge to hear it, and there needs to be a clear remedy. Now, it sounds like the remedy is in the legislation, in the code, but are you going to get somebody willing to hear it and then rule on it appropriately?
It's not absolutely required. What it requires is Mo Brooks already ready and willing to go, Congressman, and one senator challenged the California ballots, and also to insist on the recusal of all California congressmen from the vote when the House meets separately to consider all of the challenges. I guess 8 challenges. I was wrong, not 6, but 7 challenges plus California makes 8. Maybe we fail in Nevada, who knows. But if the California delegation can't vote, as it should not, since our challenge means that they are the ones essentially on trial. No one shall be a judge in his own case is a fundamental principle of our law.
So what you're saying is you simply need that challenge, and it has to be a challenge on the floor of either the House or Senate.
No, it's a challenge in the joint session.
In the joint session, okay.
All the challenges that are mounted in the joint session after the counting of the submitted ballots, which is going to be complicated by the fact that 7 of them have double counts. What are they going to do? Give twice as many electoral college votes to those states? Or are they going to have to resolve which one, if either, is going to be accepted? So when California doesn't vote on its own case, or for that matter, on any of the others, if things are done correctly, because they're not even supposed to be congressmen according to our challenge. So they shouldn't be voting on any of the challenges. If so, the Republicans would probably prevail on most of those challenges, plus the predicate, which is the California challenge.
So let me explain the congressional certification of the Electoral College, okay? So first, at noon on January 3rd, the congressmen are vetted and they take their seats, or not, from California, or not. It's going to be a bizarre thing. Okay, so then, if that happens, you'd have a Republican House and Senate. Now, Title III of the United States Code, Title III USC, Sections 1 through 15 detail how the Electoral College votes are counted. So you have a joint session of Congress where the House and the Senate meet, and it is presided over by the President of the Senate, which, of course, is Mike Pence. And so they start with the letter A. Alabama presents this many Electoral College votes in favor of, Alabama went to Trump this year. Okay. I watched this whole process live in 2016 when Biden was counting the Electoral College votes for Trump. So they announce and there's a fancy way to do it, but they announce the Electoral College votes state by state. But after each state, Pence is required to call for objections. Now, in 2016, there was objections left and right by Democratic congressmen. Biden asks, "Do you have a supporting senator?" Because the statutes require a protest document signed by a House member and a Senate member. Now, in 16, when they were calling protests, they could not get any senators. It was only reps, Democratic reps opposing when protest was called for. Now, when you have a written, signed, one senator, one rep, and they object verbally, then both houses split for 2 hours. And then each house decides what to do. And to eliminate a slate of delegates or change or what have you, both the House and the Senate have to agree. So watching this live and then reading the statutes, we're in for a wild ride upcoming on January 6th.
Assuming you can get a senator that's guts enough to step forward. And, of course, we really need to make...
Well, how about Rand Paul? I mean, what about that? I mean, we obviously know it won't be Mitch McConnell, but what about Rand Paul?
Well, I'm going to try to contact him. I've been working very hard, as you can imagine. My next step is to try to round up a senator. And I'm also trying to, since we have now at least 3 articles about this matter, Uncover DC and Black and Blonde Media and a health food site of all sorts just copied the Uncover DC one, and I'm still going through and finding if there are any more. All of these are being publicized, and they will help us get the pro bono attorney we need, help us get funds for our filing fees and so forth, help us solicit that senator by making it, this publicly available. Of course, we need to contact senators and ask them. Specific targets like Rand Paul make a lot of sense. Are there any other suggestions of senators?
Who would be? Yeah, and Rob Portman here in Ohio, I'm going to reach out to. But for the folks listening, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to reach out to my senator, see what they are going to, to see if they can come on board. A lot of folks are probably going to wonder what verbiage, when they leave that message, what verbiage should they really say to make sure that they're conveying the correct message to the senator? Well, I mean, what verbiage should they use?
That the rules of the January 6th meeting require just one senator and one congressman to pose a challenge. They need to consult with the legal teams to get a nice summary version of their challenge, and to send the details as well to all of the on their side of the aisle.
And to clarify for folks who would be listening either now or the podcast or the the YouTube, would that be the challenge the electoral count? Let's have the clarification for that. Whereas they're posing a challenge to the electoral count.
Yes, to the not the count, but just to the appointment of those electors. I don't think the counts are pretty mechanical, but the challenge is to the appointment process. Were they properly appointed? In the case of California, if we get a lawsuit going, I expect the state will say, we did everything right. They should be counted. And if they delay too long to try to take it to the actual California legislature to substitute for the voters, they don't admit the accuracy of our denial of vote, then And how can they? If they admitted the accuracy, then they would lose their congressional representation. Oh no. So they're going to fight us tooth and nail on this one. I think they would actually get to reading their own election code then. What do you think?
Well, this is mind-blowing. It's possible that Alex Padilla
well, they
sent
can
a
read.
memo.
Not sure. But, given the state of our education, can they read? I'm pretty sure they can't think.
Well, let me explain one possibility. Alex Padilla is our Secretary of State. He may have sent a memo to the election clerks that here's the paragraphs you need, and the county clerk's like, oh, okay. And so they did the paragraphs they thought as directed by Alex Padilla, because he does send memos from time to time. I saw the memo of this year's watermark is this state plant, and you use red ink. So he does send these memos to the county election clerks from time to time. Now back to the challenge in the joint session of Congress on the 6th, there is Tommy Tuberville. He's a senator willing to step up with Mo Brooks. And so you got your two. And, Chris, I want to know if I can give your phone number to Mr. Robinson, and just maybe through your contacts, Chris, Mr. Robinson can get a hold of Rand Paul.
Yeah, just give them to him off air, obviously.
Okay, that'd be fine. And by the way, the 11-page brief of prospective state and federal lawsuit and a joint summary of the two preceding it, did cover this issue about the Secretary of State directing counties to do something with their ballots. I'll read it. Moreover, the state legislature largely decentralized responsibility for determination of the format of said ballots to the county elections officials of its 58 counties, making the role of the California Secretary of State's Elections Division in this matter mostly advisory. The Secretary of State embodies his advice in what are called CCROV, County Clerks and Registrars of Voters Advisories. CCROVs, no matter how expert they might be and worthy of respect, do not command obedience. Regulations issued by the Secretary of State, by contrast, governing electoral matters, do require compliance by the county registrars of voters. However, individual registrars of voters have the power and responsibility of deciding whether a state or federal law or the state or federal constitutions override them. Below, find the link to the CCROV advisories. Any questions?
Let me ask Well, let me ask you a question. If Alex Padilla went out on his own and told the clerk via memo, the county clerks, you don't need this paragraph. Without legislation by the state, that is improper. If the California legislature,
it is the responsibility and the authority of those county registrars of voters to determine whether what advice it's called advisories he gives them, is lawful. Is it constitutional? Lawful by state or federal regulation, constitutional by state or federal constitution. It's their responsibility. They have no excuse. They're to blame for not following the law.
Yeah, I mean, if they have one part of the if they have two paragraphs required, which I've seen years before, and they don't include the new paragraph, well, then somebody is not doing their homework at the county election level.
We've been at this since 2016, where we got Sacramento to include subparagraph B. And this time we got 5 counties, not including Sacramento, their registrar of voters having retired, and evidently common sense with them, to comply with subparagraph B. But nobody was swift enough to realize that the minuscule write-in votes required language explaining what they meant too.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. So at least 2 of the 3 statutes required being followed.
Yeah, that's right. There's no category of non-ballot qualified parties, not regular. The 6 parties we actually have that can actually get their name by law next to candidates on the ballot. We didn't have any of those other political bodies actually nominating candidates, so they don't have to put that set of words in quotes precisely as given.
So there were 2 paragraphs required. Some counties had only 1.
They were quoted material. There was no doubt. There was no generalization of the instructions. Here, guys, put this in. Literally.
Put it in. They did not. The statute says shall not be counted.
Nor cast any election.
Well, if it says nor cast, I cast a ballot. How many millions of Californians cast a ballot?
Well, wait a second here. I cover that too.
Yeah, well, that means we all broke the law. To vote
they
in
were
California
unlawfully cast and unlawfully counted. So the fact they did something, it was meaningless. Those ballots and that effort and those choices were wasted because they did not provide a ballot that was competent to perform the desired action. So,
as a voter in California on November 3rd, me and millions of other people committed an illegal act.
Well, you did, but you can be blamed for it. You weren't informed. The blame rests with the elections officials.
Oh, boy. Wow. Ignorance or mistake of fact which disproves any criminal intent. That's a penal code of California. So ignorance is an excuse.
There's no criminal intent here. I'm not sure there's a penalty. Matter of fact, the only penalty appears to be a loss of your voice in making this choice. That rhymes.
No, say it again then.
You've lost your voice in making this choice.
Wow, disenfranchised. Well, wow, I hope something big happens. I don't know, Robert, if you got any other callers that want to ask a question or make a comment. This is mind-blowing.
Yes, we do have Joe on the line. Yeah, we do have Joe on the line. He came in a little late to the show, so he did miss a lot. So we'll, he might have some questions where you can fill him in. But let's go ahead and let's get Joe, and I believe he's in New York. But let's welcome Joe. Thank you very much, Joe, for coming to our show. How are you tonight?
How you doing, Bob? Yeah, I guess I have one question. You brought me up to speed, but I want to make the question anyway. From what I understand, the guest is saying that in California, if the physical ballots don't have a particular phrase on it or a particular clause, that paper ballot cast by the voter is now invalid, is now null and void. Am I getting that right?
Yes, you can't count the ballot. They shouldn't cast it, but if they do, they can't count it. And if they do, it still doesn't count.
Okay, and what particular phrase or clause is on the ballot?
It was read out before.
Okay.
Shall I read it?
No, not if it's lengthy. Just give me the your summary of it.
It's one sentence.
Okay, I'll look at it, the summary. To vote for electors of a party, pick the, voting target, like an oval or square, whatever, next to the names of the presidential and vice presidential candidates of that party. Such a mark next to the name of a party and its presidential and vice presidential candidates is a vote for all of the electors of that party, but for no other candidates. In other words, it's not for the president and the vice president nominated by the party. It's a vote for electors that you may hope and expect vote for them, but don't know for sure.
Yeah,
Joe. Let me read the sentence. It's one sentence where it's not to be counted. California Election Code, Section 113-200. Ballots not printed in accordance with this chapter shall not be cast nor counted at any election.
They have to include word for word, comma for comma, punctuation for punctuation, what is here in the quotes.
Kelly, can you read that quote again?
Okay, Section 13200, Election Code. Ballots not printed in accordance with this chapter shall not be cast nor counted at any election. When my buddy called me and told me about this, can you read that again? What? I got to see this.
Yeah, he was asking for 13205, subparagraph B, quoted material.
Oh, well, let's go for that one then. 13205B, okay? This is the introduction, and then there's quotes. So B, it says, an election where electors of President and Vice President of the United States are to be chosen, there shall be placed upon the ballot, in addition to the instructions to vote as provided in this chapter, an instruction as follows. Quote, to vote for all the electors of a party, mark the voting target next to the name of the presidential and vice presidential candidates of that party. A mark of the voting target next to the name of a party and its presidential and vice presidential candidate is a vote for all of the electors of that party, but for no other candidates. That was a paragraph that needed to be on the ballot. It's not.
Okay, now the paragraph
well, it was
that you had read to me before said all ballots not printed in this chapter, in this what?
Chapter 3, and this 13205 is in Chapter 3.
No, but the one sentence that he had read, I think it said, all ballots not printed in this, and then what was the word after that?
Ballots not printed in accordance with this chapter shall not be cast nor counted at any election.
So when they say chapter, what do they mean by
3.
chapter?
Oh, it's a range of sections. The specific range of sections is, I have it up here, is 13,200 to 13,282. That's Chapter 3.
Okay, so all ballots not printed in accordance with this chapter. All right.
And we proved that that part of that chapter, 13205, which is in the range of 13,200 to 13,282, subparagraph B, was not done in accordance with its instructions.
Okay, and
because it lacks the quoted material. By the way, elsewhere, if you look long and hard enough, you'll find that this instruction has to be at the very top of the ballot.
All right, so who
pride of place because it's about the presidential election.